Craig Neal is in the house. See, you didn't know you were so popular.
No.
This is I've Got a Friend TV. I am Paul Chase, and our show is sponsored by PARealestateResources.com with brokerage services offered through Keller Williams Elite. We are basically real estate problem solvers. We work with foreclosures and investment properties, divorce couples, basically anybody that's got residential real estate and wants to know, get shy of it or make money from it, wants to buy it, invest in it. We know what we're got an idea what we're doing. We know how to do it, and we get the job done. Today, we've got Craig Neal in the house. Craig, welcome and welcome back.
Well, thank you once again, Paul. Glad to be here.
Hey, Craig, just real quick, tell us a little bit about what you do, what your company does, who you serve, all that good kind of elevator speech. Give me a little longer than an elevator speech, but give me your elevator speech. Who do you help? What do you do?
Okay, well, great. Well, I am Craig Neal. I'm a coach, consultant, and more importantly, collaborator. And I work with privately held and Fortune 500 organizations, but primarily with leaders of those organizations and their people. I tailor strategy that helps them improve, of course, their organizational development needs and their culture, their process improvement, and ultimately help them discover ways to position their organizations to win and compete. So I'm Craig Neal. I'm the principal for the Craig Neal Corporation, which is part of a larger synergy of integrated firms from the We Speak Brand Corporation.
Okay, gotcha.
All right.
Craig, my daughter had a situation, and this is kind of what brought this up. She is a paramedic and was working for companies, and of course that's shift work, and lives are in the line. So, but one of the things she was talking about is every shift there's a new shift supervisor, and the procedures in patient, I don't say patient care, but the general procedures tend to change with who the shift supervisor happens to be that day. And even then there's maybe some inconsistencies. To me, that speaks a large part to corporate culture. Can you talk a little bit about who ultimately sets the tone for that corporate culture? Because I don't know if all that blame lies just with the shift supervisor.
Well, I'm glad that you asked that question, and kudos to your daughter for, caring for those in need. So, oftentimes they don't get recognized for the great service they do within the health industry. So give her a shout out when you get a chance, Paul. Craig Neal said thanks. But to more firmly answer your question, it's simple. Everyone's responsible for corporate culture. It's organic, and it's not something that you just come up with overnight, put it in a 3-ring binder and put on a shelf. It should always be part of the way that the shift changes, the management style, as well as the way that everyone behaves and represents the true identity of the firm. So oftentimes you hear the terms, the fish rots from the head down, and I've also heard of terms of management from the bottom up. But the truth of the matter, usually what I tend to find is that there's a mix of both the top and bottom, and that middle management area, where if the three aren't aligned, that's when you're going to see disparities within how they communicate, how they operate. But when I work with my clients, for brief engagements, it all begins with identifying and through observance what it smells like, what it feels like, throughout the entire organization. And typically, walking in, you'll get a whiff of whether the culture's stinky or it smells like fresh baked pie.
Doesn't that depend on what the cafeteria is cooking that day?
or if there is an in-house cafeteria, but let's assume that everyone there is a baker, right? So here's what I'll say about corporate culture, and the story with your daughter is typical. You know, you mentioned a big word, I believe, inconsistency, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're inconsistent in the way that you address challenges or the way that you address processes, then things can go haywire. And perhaps the customer or the client you're serving doesn't necessarily see that, at first glance. You have to remember your first customer, of course, they're your people, and they can see that. That's why you see high attrition rates, or you see a reduction in performance, and there's wide turnover for organizations that really actually need good people, or they probably had good people, but they decided to leave. The old, adage of, people don't leave companies, they leave bosses. Well, that's true.
But and wouldn't isn't I want to go back to what you were talking about, bottom up versus fishes rot from the head down.
Right.
Isn't the senior management the ones that ultimately set the tone, because they are the ones who hire the mid-level people? They're the ones who set the policies and enforce the policies that are in that binder that's sitting on the shelf. Aren't they the ones, if there's a high attrition rate, somebody from on the ivory tower there has got to be looking and saying, why?
Right. And Paul, if it was that simple, I guess everyone would be, a consultant, in that, within the,
or everybody else would have it made and you wouldn't need it.
Right. Yeah, I'd be selling real estate with you, man.
You just stay over there and do what you do. I don't have enough competition.
I had to figure out something, but excuse me. Yeah. So, at first glance, you think that, because we've been preconditioned to think that, hey, at the end of the day, the buck stops at, with leadership. The way that, I approach it typically is, what I shared with you before: change your condition to change your position. My trademarked approach to, one, establishing that change initiative with leadership, right? There are a lot of derailers that, attribute to how leaders function and flow within their organization, and that the examples that they set. All right. They are the exemplars, but so is everyone. And oftentimes, when I do collaborate and I engage with whether it's the front line or middle management, they're all pointing. They're all pointing the finger. It's you, it's you, it's you, it's you. There's a handful of C-suiters. And if you have 300 folks within an organization, really, they have the opportunity to create the culture that they want, right? So they outnumber the leadership, and so they can still act upon, some of the attitudes and norms within an organization. And let me cut into what culture or what corporate culture is, because in cases where I've been involved, there's a misconception of corporate culture. It's not just mission, vision, and values. And this happens quite a bit. If I reach out to, say, for instance, a referral, or someone says, hey, you have to, come and meet with Craig. He wants to talk to you about, your organizational, culture needs. And they'll say, oh, no, we already have our mission, vision, values. Okay, are they being enforced? When was the last time that you, reviewed them or assessed if they're applicable within your organization? I don't know, maybe 10 years ago. Well, you're kind of late, right? But MVV doesn't do it all. It's the everyday interactions. It's continually finding, areas to share with your people, as opposed to being, reactive and saying, oh man, you're going to be disciplined for, not living the family, our corporate value of integrity. You should have been, more candid about, whatever the situation was. What about, some proactive or positive reinforcement? What about like huddles and opportunities when have like that, that pre-opening meeting that you can say, hey guys, I want to talk about something specific, regarding value number 4, which is integrity. The other day, sharing stories and getting people, involved in that mindset so they can live out, some of those behaviors. And also, it's not, just what happens in the workplace. Most people think, well, all right, cool. I clocked out. It's 5 o'clock Friday. I'm done. I'm doing my thing. You want to make sure that you're, recruiting and bringing people in who have the character that, that exemplifies what you want them to, be in and outside of the office, and then outside of, just the, the client's workspace. So you mentioned, perhaps bringing people in and recruiting. That's important. You want to make sure that you identify whether or not these folks are, the right fit, or if they're, as old sales, skills remind me of coachable. Are they coachable? Can they, acclimate to, what's going on here? So, oftentimes when I get the, whole, pushback of, well, we've got our mission, vision, values, and we sat down and we put them together. The first question I ask is, again, when was the last time you reviewed them? And what are you doing outside of those mission, vision, values that you staple up on the wall? And if everyone in here cannot recite them, whether it's 5, or if it's like 10 or 15, it's kind of too long. As far as core values or even talking about the mission. But if it's simple, it's digestible, and it's applicable to what they do functionally within the organization, then you might be onto something. But I tell you, if you ask, a handful of people, they're all going to give you mixed, examples of what the corporate culture is. Because yes, they're feeling it from their perspective, and in most cases, they're not having a lot of engagement with those who have the influence to exemplify. I'm sorry, who have the influence to help them experience, the desired state, the desired culture.
So, okay, everybody's, and I can see that in in a larger organization. I guess I'm thinking more of of a smaller, 5 to 10 people maybe, and I'm thinking of just of the ramifications of that, because corporate culture really, in my world, begins with who you hire, and then that affects, I would think, how business is done, and ultimately somehow that's got to bleed out to customer experience. Could you talk about that for just a little bit?
Well, indeed. I mean, typically I don't work with that small of a group of folks, but a lot of the practices can be applied. It's
I mean,
not
pick,
rocket science, but
pick a Fortune 500 company at will. I mean, there's a very large cable and internet provider that I can't stand, and I wonder how anybody else could work there. If what I'm seeing on the outside,
right.
and what everybody else, people in my world say, I can't find anybody that likes this company.
Yeah,
Um,
you kind of just stuck with
they're the only game, literally the only game in town. So what does that convey? I've got to wonder what's going on inside.
Well, indeed. I mean, it's reflective of what's going on inside. But whether it's a small organization or not, what tends to happen when you have, I'll go ahead and take you back to that 5 and 10. So 5 and 10 people, you all know each other. You're happy that one. I can speak on that. And if someone joins the organization, I'm excited. And I want to teach them everything that I know, everything that they should be prepared for. So it's easy to share and articulate, the corporate culture and what we're about. But as you start to grow, and people, start to move to their respective silos, it's hard to cull that in without making sure that that's an initiative in the beginning. with onboarding, right? So if you're onboarding people, as I mentioned before, it's okay to vet people out. It's okay to take your time, with bringing people into your organization. It's okay to get others that are, exemplars of it, or who have, some tenure, within the organization to, cross interview them if need be, right? As far as the cable company situation, I think we all know who that is. I don't know. We don't get them out in my neck of the woods, unfortunately. I wish, but
No, you don't.
yeah, I know. I'm on that satellite stuff, but
Well, I'm on satellite too, but unfortunately, they're the only internet providers here. So
yeah. Well, that's based solely on what their DNA is. There's a book I read that does a breakdown of the true DNA of organizations, and one is called, of course, the mother, the mechanic, and I believe the nurturer. Like, for instance, Google, they make stuff. There's not really a customer focused, experience unless you have, like G Suite or something like that, where, you actually subscribe to it. Then you can usually reach out to someone. But they make products. They continue to make them better and better and better and better and better. And it's not necessarily, a customer centric type of culture. It's a product based culture. But then you have, things like Zappos or Zappos that have like a culture of being motherly and being nurturing, right? So their customers, so they sell products, but their focus, their corporate culture really connotes what they're striving to be for the customer. And then the identifying what category you fall in really dictates how you engage internally and how you, of course, transfer that, externally with customers. So perhaps that cable company in your area isn't really focused on that. And of course, they pretty much run the board there. So you kind of get what you get. But there are always ways or approaches that you can take to pull that in. And I'm very confident that, they've made attempts, but with so much commotion going on and people stationed here and, there are subcontractors that do some of the work, it becomes more and more complicated. If they pulled back and, said, okay, we're going to focus on, changing, the way that we're received, outside of, just coming up with the fastest, greatest speeds, then it would require an initiative that is well thought out and a strategy that has to be executed by more than just, one person or one order, to the front line.
And then that's where they would need to bring in somebody from the outside who, such as yourself, that could deal with that and help them, change at least that public perception. So where everybody says, wow, I get to deal with these people, as opposed to, oh no, I got to deal with these people.
Yes. And which brings me to like I say, I'm a coach, so I do executive coaching. I can consult, so I can work on, projects. Like, hey, Craig, we have, a challenge with, the way that, our customers are being waited on to, take care of their request for, an installation or whatever. We can talk about those things, but the collaboration part is, again, where I roll my sleeves up and I immerse myself in that culture and get a better understanding. My goal, in our previous sit down, I had shared, my passion is for people. I want people to reach their highest potential. And, I can't do it myself. I can't motivate people. I hope I can inspire people, because motivation is intrinsic. But if you share the right tools and you can transfer skills and actually engage and be part of that, most leaders don't have all that time. So they bring me in to, help them meet some needs that would one solve some of the challenges a lot faster than them, doing 50%, running the company and 50%, putting out fires. And when that collaborative engagement, is in place, it allows not me to be the change agent, but everyone involved in the organization to be the change agent. And so the goal is to make sure that it's authentic. So I can make anyone look like $1 billion with, our suite of, organizations and services, no biggie. But, at the end of the day, you're going to be found out as an imposter, right? It's funny. So with our market research and focus group firm, oftentimes we look at, reviews, so I'll look at an organization that touts that they're the greatest thing since, sliced pie, since we go back to that, baking scenario we had. And, they tout how great they are. They have, they might have their mission, vision, values online and stuff and, on their website. Then I go to Indeed and I see that they're looking to hire like 10 salespeople, a carpenter, or whatever it may be. They have like 10 positions that, are open on a job post. On Indeed, you can click on and you can see the reviews from either current or past employees. And when I see that there's some inconsistencies as to the way that they're promoting and jiving, this great place to work, and someone leaving a 1 and say I would have left a 0, terrible place, management is this, yada yada yada, harsh conditions to work at, but yet you've got an ad out on a job post for that position. No one's reviewing that in a lot of cases. No one's combating any of these things. And that's like for me, a guy like myself, that's a sign that, hey, hold on, there may be some things that, and it could be a disgruntled employee. It could, be someone who really didn't, get it or understand. But do you really want that to be the face of who you are? So that change has to come internally. And we have to work on ensuring that it's consistent and it's conveyed properly outside to, whether you're looking for bringing in, new college grads, for your recruiting efforts, or you want to, maintain or sustain, a great environment, internally. And remember, in most cases, I think we kind of have that freedom, Paul, but in most, I guess, corporate or business situations, you spend more time with the people that you work next to than you do with your own family. So I would assume that most people really have standards set for the way that they interact with their kids and their family, and what our family name stands for. Why is it that you'll find that those standards are overlooked within an organization that you spend, all that time with, others? So, I hope that answers the question that you posed. Or
yeah, as I'm sitting here listening, I'm wondering, I understand unless you're a nonprofit, obviously if you're not a nonprofit, then you got to be a for-profit. But I'm wondering if there's so much focus on profit that we sacrifice things like customer service, customer experience, and all of that, and employee morale, and all of those things to me feed profit. Are we so focused on profit that we forget the things that feed profit?
Man, hey, that was powerful, Paul. That was powerful. I don't know if that was rhetorical or not, but it's true.
No, I just think I don't. I just have idle thoughts.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, in a lot of cases, I mean, we have. I watched maybe about 5 minutes of Morning Joe, and there was a segment on there that was kind of talking about how we kind of lost our way, with everything being accessible, even I rarely carry any cash on me. I can use my phone to pay for stuff. Everything's instant. And our last conversation when you had me as a guest, we talked about AI and all this tech, and all the possibilities that are out there. But essentially, they're tools. Until everything becomes 100% bot. Our last hope, not just in business, but within communities, are people. And when we start to focus on, okay, here, let me give you an example. I had a client that initially
having a client is good.
Yeah, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. I had a client that initially, brought me in for a brief engagement, and I believe in observing myself before I play with the hearsay. But it's the client, and they talked about everyone in their organization, works as a team, and when I interviewed him. He started describing that, he's focused on the people and, we just make a product, Craig, but, I really want my people to, do well, to show that, we're successful. If they're doing well, that means that if I'm doing well, that means that they're doing well, and back and forth. And over the roughly about 3 months with, into the project, I had to have an extensive meeting with him. Because the way that the behaviors that he was exemplifying were not consistent with, that initial meeting, when we decided, collectively we engage. And it was more about, well, that's not important. We don't need to, get new equipment. We don't really need to worry about safety. Let's put a Band-Aid on it. Yes, you know what? If
that's a lawsuit waiting to happen.
Yeah, just I choose who I want to work with and who I don't want to work with, and that was one of those. But there were some. It just wasn't consistent. I often set up a hotline, for feedback, right? And it's an anonymous hotline. Usually when it's a large organization, and people don't want to, get in trouble for speaking their minds in the beginning stages of the engagement. And there were a lot of comments or messages left that talked about, hey, I'm about to put my 2 weeks notice in because this company is full of, and they only care about profits. They don't care about if I bring up anything. I missed my father's funeral due to HR not really having things in place to set up bereavement policies, right? And it was sickening. It was sickening to feel that from people. And again, it's anonymous, so I couldn't really tell how long they'd actually been there. But I had my thoughts of who it could have been. And when I addressed, I always gather facts. And when I addressed my client at the time with these facts, it was just shrugged off. Oh, well, see them. They can go then. Don't worry about it. So, to your point about chasing the dollar, I mean, you'll make money. If you take care of your people, they'll take care of your customers, and you will make money. But you have to be consistent with it. You have to really love and want what you do. The rate of suicides for dentists is, I believe it's like number one or number two. So you have someone working on your teeth that really isn't happy with their lives. There are a lot of people who are missing, the trifecta of,
I've been to that hygienist. Yeah.
You got to have passion, competence, right, and confidence. If that confluence of abilities is off in any way, you don't have that trifecta, then maybe it's time to do something else. Or you can change your condition by improving your skills, or which will lead to more competence, and doing good with those things, which will give you the confidence, And, I'm presuming that most people have that passion, but you have a lot of, leaders that, are experiencing, changes within the organization that lead to derailers, like the eccentric leader, or, the leader that's, doesn't have self-awareness skills, right? But yet they expect people to, abide by these rules versus making it simple for them to say, hey, this is the way we do things, and I'm going to do it with you. And so, and oftentimes they're so removed from that process. Like I said, when you have 5-10 people, it's easy to say, yeah, we're a tight knit team here, and we believe in these 4 or 5 values, and we're going places with our mission in the next 5 years. Da, 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 da. But as you start to grow and expand, it really, really, really starts to wind down, and that same vigor that you had, when you were just getting, started on the ground, becomes, just hearsay. There's also the folks that, perform very well. They're producers. They make the money, but they don't know how to, operate or play well with the rest of the team. And if your values say, we believe in teamwork and fairness and, the like, and that person is not exemplifying it, it doesn't matter how much money they're producing for you. What matters is that you bring them back to the forefront of, hey, we hired you, on the basis of being part of this organization, not following our rules necessarily, because I think sometimes there are too many rules and people feel trapped. But by, honoring the tenets of, what we stand for and what we're about. And if you can't play well in the sand with others, then it's probably time, to move on, or change the way that you do things. Unfortunately, there are a lot of organizations, a lot of leaders that they accept that. They're like, hey, look, he made $12 million for us, last year. I don't know. We're not gonna fire Rick, or Reggie or whatever.
Yeah, I can, I can understand that, but are you going to get that same 12? What did that 10 or 12 million, whatever that profit was, those gross sales, what did that cost you in terms of client loyalty? Are those people coming back?
Right.
You brought up the hotlines and the social media reviews. I mean, reviews are, your online reputation is, it's easy to trash and it's almost impossible to get back. And I want to wrap up because we're starting to run a little long.
Understood.
Some of the things that you mentioned, I was thinking, somebody told me once, believe half of what you hear, but all of what you see.
Bingo.
Because your actions truly speak louder than words. And I'll be more impressed by what you do, or I tell people, don't tell me what you're going to do, tell me what you done did, or let me see what you done did. I know the English is bad.
That's okay. I'm already thinking of you trademarking that,
man. Go for it. Just give me a share of the royalties. Okay? But the other thing, I don't know if I'll probably get in trouble for this, but I look at Costco. They're busy. At least whenever I'm there, they're busy. I don't know if people just wait till they see me going down I-30 until I'm heading to. Everybody swamps right then. But I always see the same employees there, and they've been there for the last. I think I've been in town 15 years. And I think some of those people have been there for a long, long time. So Costco's, and I think they've got the reputation of treating their employees very, very well. And obviously they do, because their employees don't leave. Or at least, a lot of the public ones don't leave. So Costco's got to be doing something right. And I know very little about their culture other than I see a lot of the same people there. Yeah, they're tired because they're working their tails off. But at the same time, they're there every day. So, they got to be doing something right. This would be a fun discussion to keep having on, but like I say, we're running long and my wife is home and I still owe her dinner. So, so we got your website, and I even did manage to pull it up.
Great. Okay. Corporate. We speak brand. Yep.
I do got to ask you. I got to find out who this guy here is in the corner. Because I need him to stand in front of some of the houses I've got for sale and see if we can get them sold a little faster.
Oh, hey,
So,
you
if
know,
you could hook me up, man, if you could hook me up with him, I'd really appreciate it.
yeah, indeed. Not on Indeed, but you can visit that site you showed. That's wespeakbrand.com. And if you want to go direct to me, and that'd be Craig Neal, Neal.com.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, I don't know. That's my shameless plug to carry on with that conversation. Hey, another thing I wanted to just share, Paul. I really do appreciate you bringing myself and others on. These are interesting conversations that I often go back and I read listen to if I haven't had a chance to listen to the full ones from your guests. This is great what you're doing. It gives us a platform. Of course, it gives you a platform, but moreover, it's just genuine conversation, and it doesn't have to be scripted or anything. And I just commend you and encourage you to keep doing what you're doing, man.
I appreciate it. Scripting these shows is too much like work, and I learned so much from guys like you because it causes me to think, thinking about my own organization, what I do, and really just gives me a platform to help other people and make the connections. And I think that's what business is all about. It's really is, what can you do to help other people, and eventually some of it'll come back around. So
hey, well thank you very much, and I'm sure it will come back around to you, man.
We'll have to we'll get together somewhere and set a date and see if we can do this again.
Hey, I look forward to it. Just let me know.
Sounds like a plan. Thank you,
All
sir.
right. Well, hey, back to dinner for you.
Yeah. Got to go keep the wife happy.
Indeed, man. Hey, have a blessed one and a happy Easter or Passover.
Yeah, and you too.
Thank you.